Hey everybody, I wanted to do a quick walkthrough of my library curriculum notebook and timeline set. First, I'm going to go ahead and show you that in Goodnotes, and then I'll make a separate video for those of you who use Zoom Notes because there's some different functionality when using both. Of course, you'll click on New to import your PDFs as downloaded from Etsy. And once you're in there, I'm going to go ahead and click on the library notebook. And it accidentally took me to that the last page I was working on. But as you can see, this is the cover. You may want to go ahead and fill out the name, year, and level for your student, especially if you have more than one, so that from the cover page, they can see which book is theirs. All right, let's get going here. Of course, there are hyperlinked tabs throughout the notebook. So this index page just includes all of the tabs. So we'll kind of go through one by one and I'll show you some different ways you might use this. When working in Goodnotes, I would recommend that you also import your curriculum PDF. So let me go back to this home screen. You can see here um, I have at the top grade 8 history of science. We use Build Your Library, so I've imported that PDF as it was purchased from Build Your Library. All right, so getting going, our first section is vocabulary and notes. And as you scroll through, you're going to find several different templates for vocabulary work that your kids may be doing as part of their curriculum. So this is an example of one word per page. It's bigger area to write for kids who may need that. This is the same template, but it is smaller, 4 words per page. Here's a little example I started yesterday. This is 1 word per page. It has an area to draw a picture. You can see up here at the top, I'm going to turn my pen tool on and highlight right here for you guys. You can see where I actually copy and pasted from the curriculum. So I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to click up here and turn on to the History of Science grade 8 curriculum. And I could go through and find, let me use this to scroll. So I'm going to find a page of the curriculum that might include some vocabulary words. Let's click here and see if there's something. Let's see, this is just a notes page. Let's see if we can find one with some vocabulary. Okay, here's one that includes some vocabulary. So what I'll do is I'll use my lasso tool and I will lasso around the vocabulary. Then I will long click, take a screenshot, click on the arrow with the box at the top, click copy. Then I can jump back over to my library curriculum notebook. And your kiddo can then actually, you can see where I did it here, you can paste. You're going to click these arrows down at the bottom, click crop, and that's where you can use the rectangle tool to sort of refine that initial screenshot that we did from the curriculum page to make it look nice. And I'm going to click done. So if you want your kid to just copy and paste their vocabulary words, they could do that. There's several different ways you could have them use these vocabulary pages. So feel free to keep them all and assign them to your kids, in whatever order you want. Or if there's just certain templates you won't use, you can delete those to get them out of their notebook. And then you can duplicate the pages that you'll use more of. So you would do that by clicking in the four little boxes in the upper left corner to get you to your thumbnail view. And any of these pages that you like, that you feel like, say this really large first template, say I know I'm going to use that a lot. You would just click duplicate as many times as you want that to be in the book. And you can even teach your kids how to duplicate a page that they like to be able to work in it. So that is the basics of the different options for vocabulary. Here is one where it's just lines. So for an older kid, you may actually have them handwrite and copy it. I have a child with dyslexia and dysgraphia, so we do utilize uh, text-to-speech quite a lot in our homeschool. So you can also click on the text box, and let me adjust the size so it kind of is the right size for my lines here. And I could then go down at the bottom of my keyboard to do the dictation. So that's a really good method for kids who may struggle with writing, or even younger kids, that you can teach them to use that dictation. There's lots of information online about the best ways to use dictation and how you do have to speak your punctuation, but it certainly will help them with certain spelling words so they can type or handwrite anywhere in this document. All right, let's keep going. Oh, in the notes section, there's oftentimes, here's an example, oftentimes in the Build Your Library, there'll be a notes section where they're asked to answer some questions. So again, they could go to the curriculum, copy and paste using screenshot that I just demonstrated a few minutes ago, and copy it into this notes page and answer their questions here, either by handwriting with a stylus or using the type tool to type. Goodnotes is available both on the iPad and on the Mac computers, so they can actually type on a regular computer too if you need kids using a different device. All right, so a couple of different options in the notes and vocabulary pages, including even just this blank page, so you can use those however you like. Part of the Build Your Library curriculum includes something called narrations, and I've gone ahead and created a basic grid of narrations that you could have your kiddo use. You could, for instance, let me turn on my pen tool. You could tell them that they need to do a narration, but they have to complete them all before they can repeat. So you might have them say, let's see, say they choose draw a scene from the reading and include a short caption. They could use a blank page here in this notebook to draw the scene, and then you could have them mark out that they did it and what day they did it there, and keep going. Now, each Build Your Library curriculum also comes with a specific set of narration cards that I didn't include. Let me go ahead and turn on my pen tool and lasso so you can see what I've done here. All right, I'm going to actually delete this. So you can see it comes with blank. Now, as the parent, you could type and write your own narrations, or you could jump back over here to the curriculum. Let me go to my thumbnail view, scroll back up where she provides, here's the page with the narrations. So again, I could go ahead and just lasso this. I can click and hold, take a screenshot, copy it, and then jump back over to my student notebook, hold my pen down, click paste, bottom arrows, click on crop, kind of touch it up a little bit here, pulling in on all sides. Oops. Click done, and then resize. And if you want to use only the narrations that came, stretch it just a little with your particular curriculum set, then you could do that, and you could just copy and paste them right in there and delete these other ones that I did. So also in the narrations section of the notebook, there's a place where they can write. Some of the older levels, it may ask them to, let's see, down here at the bottom, it says write a summary. So they would maybe duplicate this page and go ahead and write their summary in here. This is just grid paper. If it asks them to draw something, they could maybe do that there. They could also use this blank page. Say it says to build a diorama. They could build it, take a picture of it, and then insert it on this page for their notebook and record keeping. So lots of different ways to use these narration sections. The next section of their notebook is the activity section. Many of the curriculums come with little activity pages that they need to fill in. So there are some grid papers, some line papers, and then some blank space. You can see I copy and pasted using that same process of going back in with the selection tool, taking a screenshot and copying and pasting any of these activity pages. You can see here's the cartouche one that I did. So I just selected that, copy and pasted it right into an activities page where then the kiddo can work on it. So an older student, you may teach them how to do that simple process of copying the page into their notebook, or you may, as the parent ahead of time, go ahead and just drop these in there for them. Again, you would click on duplicate as many times as you want. Now you would want to duplicate a cleared page, but it's easy to go up here to these triple dots in the upper right hand corner, click the clear page, and then that's going to empty it out for you. So then I would duplicate this blank page as many times as I wanted for my kiddos. So it's a pretty simple process. I think older kids could definitely do it, but like I said, younger kids, you may set up their notebook for them ahead of time. So there's plenty of space there. You would also have them do this same process for their map work. You can see I went ahead and copied one of the maps from our level 8 in here. And whatever the directions say to do, they can then jump over, and if they had to color, they could use the highlighter tool and color different sections of their map. They may use the pen tool to label them. So they can do all kinds of things. Anything they would need to be able to do, they should be able to do with their map work here digitally. So this is great for people that are on the go, who may not have, all of the supplies with them, or people who are road schooling, for instance, would really be able to take advantage of this digital notebooking. This is the memory work section. Many of the curriculums require some type of memorization, so they could copy and paste it. You could have them type it, and then just encourage them, or whenever in the curriculum it says to revisit their memorization. Down here I wrote an area of your goal date to recite and who they would like to recite it for. My kids will generally do it just a video record that I can share online or share with friends and family. Many of the library curriculums have a separate science section, or you may be adding science. So I went ahead and added a science tab to your notebook. And behind this tab, I did include a basic lab report that you could have your kids use. And then also, of course, just a blank page that you could duplicate as many times as you want, and then add in photos or whatever you're doing in science that you want them to include in their notebook. They could certainly add that here. I've also included, now we're going to go through these top tabs, and I've included two different book list options for you. Now, level 8 that we are doing is a very meaty build your library level, and there's actually 46 books. So I did include a page that includes 50 books if you're doing a really meaty level with your kids. And so what you could do is you could either handwrite really quickly the title and author, or you can see here I use the type tool. And then what I would like to do is get this filled out so that my kid knows where to find the book. So if you own it, you may write where they would find it or just put an X. If it's an ebook, you may tell them which app you want them to find it on. If it's a book that you know they will need to remind you to reserve at the library, you could make note of that. So this is just a really simple, easy way to keep track of your book list so that when your student comes across a book mentioned in the curriculum, they could easily click on their book list and know where they should be locating that particular book. And then I've also included just a 30 section book list. If your book list is a little smaller, you could write a little bigger. So feel free to keep both. You can duplicate, delete, whatever you need to do. The idea would be that you use this student notebook fresh for each level that you do. All right, now let's take a look at the timeline section, because this is where it's going to be different for you guys who are planning in Goodnotes versus maybe somebody planning in a different application like Zoom Notes, which allows linking. It's really just a personal preference. I have some notes here at the top that you can see. of different ways you might approach using the timeline. I've included a full hyperlinked timeline in the student notebook so that if you want your children to use their timeline in the notebook for that level, they can. But I'm going to click over here up at the top so you can see, I've also included a completely separate timeline book as part of this set so that if you only want them working on one timeline notebook for all of their levels, it's in its own separate book. And that's important because once you finish in your curriculum notebook, this notebook here, this is really for each level. So you can approach it two ways, either keeping your timeline with each level or making one timeline for all of the levels. I would think most people would try to keep their timeline for all of the levels so that the kids can see how different things relate. But it's totally up to you how you want to handle that. You can see that they're separated into 4 periods, and each of these is hyperlinked. So with my pen tool off, I can easily click directly to that section of the timeline. So I'm just going to kind of show you around how this works. So for instance, here I'm going to click on 2010 to 2020, or you can also flip. If you're in Goodnotes, it's easy to flip. So the sections are War and Politics at the top, Discoveries in Technologies and Sciences. You have Religion and Philosophy, Arts, Humanities, and Architecture. So what you'll do is you'll switch back over to your curriculum. And you can use the timeline figures that came with it. Build Your Library does provide them. I also have downloaded, let me jump out of here and show you. Somebody on the Facebook group included some of these level 8 timeline figures that are color and kind of, really fun. So let me show you how I would use this. Let me turn on again, I'm going to go to my lasso tool. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to lasso loosely this figure. I'm going to click take a screenshot. Again, square copy. Then I can jump back over to my timeline notebook. Let's see, this is 1638. So let me jump to my timeline notebook. I'm going to find, let's see, 1638 would fall in here. I'm going to click on that. And now I can paste it. Again, I'm going to click on these arrows. I'm going to crop it so I can kind of clean up this white space so that it's not taking up too much room. And now I can easily resize. I'm going to put him in War and Politics, 1638. So we're going to bump him down here. And the nice thing about doing this digitally is as you add things to the timeline, if it gets a little cramped, it's really easy to resize, move around. You can stack these guys in here. You can layer. If you want your kids to, add some handwritten notes, they could. So lots of different ways. You could have them label these arrows if you wanted to. Some of the different times in between each arrow would be different, but you could sort of approach it individually per each page and have them, or just make, a bigger 1640 to 1620. We might draw a line. However, there's all kinds of ways that you could have them use these timeline pages. Now, I am looking in the library curriculum timeline notebook, and you can see in the timeline notebook, there are tabs going down the side for each of the beginning of each of these periods, but you can also go to the index. That's the only thing that's different than if you're in the library curriculum notebook, and then the timeline is just going to be using these indexed hyperlinks. So that's the difference between using it within the student notebook versus keeping the timeline separate. Very easy though to come through and copy and paste each individual figure. Whoops, that's the pen tool. Wherever your child needs it. I think this is a process that kids could easily pick up pretty quickly. They're pretty smart little cookies. All right, let's jump back to the notebook. So you can see this is all the end part of it is all the timeline. Now I do have a curriculum tab. And so as I've been doing this demonstration, I've been showing you by jumping, I've been clicking up at the top and jumping over to the curriculum PDF that I imported it as its own doc. However, if you want your child to just be able to use this tab and not leave and go to a different curriculum, you can always add it. So that's what I've done here. You can see after the curriculum tab, this is page 127, you can actually see where I've imported the Build Your Library PDF. So the way you would do that, oops, let's get out of here, is up at the top, I would click these three dots and oh goodness, where did I do that? I think it's in here. Let's see. Document editing. I don't plan in Goodnotes a whole lot anymore. Ah, sorry, it's this plus page. I knew I was right there close. So what I can do is I can say after, I would keep this selected as after, not before. So after, I can then say import, go and find, I have mine in my iCloud Drive, but wherever you tend to save your PDF that you've purchased for your library curriculum, that's where you would go. And anything that you pick here for any curriculum, I'll just go through and show you. Whoops. Goodness. Oh, now it's giving me trouble. Okay, so import, and I'm going to go through and find my Build Your Library. So I could click that, and then it's automatically going to pull in that PDF as part of this notebook, and then just drop it there at the end. Now, I had actually already imported this, so that's why it may be acting kind of funky here, like, what did you want? And you can see now I can scroll directly from my curriculum divider and then boom, it's all right there. Now, I personally would click on these four boxes and delete a lot of this information that's here at the start of your curriculum that your kids don't really need, that's more geared toward the parents that they're not going to be looking at. I would go ahead and just select and delete those pages if it were me. Okay, and then another cool thing that you can do is go through and all of these weekly uh, grids that your kids might need to look at, you can click this little bookmark, and that can actually help them navigate really quickly if you wanted to do a little legwork for them on the front end. Because up at the top, you can see it says thumbnails, which is the view we're looking at now. But you can also click to look at favorites, and you can teach them to go through and easily find. Or just use one bookmark instead of bookmarking them all, and then they'll know exactly where they left off. So say they're on, week 2, day 3, you could actually click this right up here at the top left, the bookmark, and then that way next time they open their page, they can get directly there. Now, since I added this curriculum PDF into my notebook, I imported it into my notebook, there's not actually going to be links to that, right? Because it's like we added a whole separate page. So what I would need to do is go click on these four and go just scroll anywhere back up to where there's tabs, and then they can easily navigate. So it's up to you whether you go ahead and import behind that curriculum tab or you just import it as its own document and have it open and they can kind of switch like this, between the two documents. Either way works. Now, if you're in Zoom Notes, there's some really cool functionality there that includes the ability to have sub PDFs. So I'll be showing that in a different video. But if you're in Goodnotes, it's just a little bit of a workaround that you have to switch between these two documents. But overall, my kids still find it very easy. They catch on to these types of things really quickly. So that is your basic walkthrough of the two notebooks that come with this set, the library curriculum notebook, the student notebook, and then you have your timeline. Some families share a timeline while others have each student create their own timeline. You can handle that however you want. You may, though, want to password protect your student's notebook. So you can see here it's called Library Curriculum Notebook. That's the default name. But I could always go ahead and click here and change this to, say, Micah. Um, Build your library notebook. And then that way he knows that it is his. And then you can teach your kids not to get into each other's stuff. And I don't think that Goodnotes has the ability to password protect, but Zoom Notes does. I may have to double check that, but I'll show that in Zoom Notes. That's another good functionality that you might see later is the ability to password protect each document to keep your kids from getting into messing each other's stuff up. All right, well, thanks for checking out this really cool digital notebook. Again, this can be used for any library style curriculum, including Torchlight, Build Your Library, Bookshark. It's just really versatile, even if you use another Charlotte Mason literature style approach. So let me know if you have questions, and I'm happy to help. And thank you for considering purchasing, or if you did purchase, this notebook set. Bye, guys.